This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome to the GSMC All Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alex Masfer. I'm extremely excited to be doing this show for you guys today. It appears that some sports are finally going to be coming back, obviously during this long hiatus from, basketball, football, baseball. We have gotten to see little bits of some sports with UFC, with some golf and some NASCAR, but it appears that the NBA is coming back very soon, and hopefully baseball as well. So I'm in extremely good mood, extremely excited to finally see some sports being played on the field. Can't wait to be watching the games with everybody else. We have a fantastic show for you guys today. In a little bit, I'm going to be talking about how the NBA did vote on to come back, when they're going to come back. There's been a lot of speculation of when, how, where they will play, so we'll get into all of that as well. And I have an interesting theory on why they're inviting so many teams, and they expanded, instead of just the 8 in the East and the 8 in the West, the traditional playoff run, they actually expanded the regular season, inviting a couple more teams who are in the playoff hunt, and I have an interesting theory on why it is they did that. A little bit later on in the show, I'm going to be talking about the Michael Jordan documentary, and what it means for MJ's legacy, but also what it means for LeBron's legacy, and how it impacted the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James debate that seems to be as old as time. So we'll get into that as well. Also, later on in the show, I'm going to be talking about the Tom Brady Patriots split up. Tom Brady obviously went to the Buccaneers in the offseason. I'm going to be talking about who I think will win that quote-unquote divorce between, the star coach, Bill Belichick, and the organization, the New England Patriots, the quarterback, Tom Brady. And finally, stick around to the end of the show. For my best for last, I will be talking about top 10 young NFL quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I made a list. It's got an interesting list. I think you guys are going to like it. About my top 10 NFL quarterbacks. The criteria was age under 25, so make sure you stick around the end of the show for that. But yeah, let's just get right into the first segment, which is that the NBA is coming back. Finally. Ever since the NBA kind of stopped abruptly in March, we've been wondering, speculating, when is the NBA going to come back? How is the NBA going to come back? Even if the NBA was going to come back, and finally we have some clarity, we have some good news that the NBA will be coming back. They will be playing in Orlando at the Disney World Resorts. They're scheduled to be hopefully playing in late July is when they want to get kicked off. They want to get started. The other thing that a lot of people were speculating on are, how is it going to work? Are they just going to, go straight into playoffs? Are they going to let everybody play a couple of games beforehand? Are they going to invite all the teams back? Well, the NBA decided that, they will go kind of straight into the playoffs. However, they are bringing in a lot of the teams, specifically in the Western Conference, who are close to making the playoffs, those kind of outside-looking-in teams, for those 2 to 4 game backs of trying to get into the 8th seed of the playoffs. Those teams will also be being invited to them as well. So in the West, besides the traditional 8 playoff teams in the West, which would have been the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Jazz, Thunder, Rockets, Mavericks, and Grizzlies, they also decided to invite the Portland Trailblazers, the Pelicans, who I'll get into in a minute, the Sacramento Kings, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Phoenix Suns. So they fit the criteria of record-wise and games out of an 8th seed, or a 7th seed even, to make the playoffs, to be invited to Orlando as well. And in the East, only one team got invited, besides the traditional, the 8 playoff that were already there, and it was the 9th seed Washington Wizards, who are about 5.5 games back, but, anything can happen, obviously. Now, I think there's one main reason why the NBA decided to go the route that they did. Obviously, they were going to go straight into playoffs. They want to get this season in. It's hard to pass up trying to get a season in when the Los Angeles Lakers are finally really good again, the Celtics are really good again, the Clippers are really good, the Rockets are really good, Philly's really good, Miami's really good. There's a lot of really good teams in the NBA this year, and obviously in years past, we haven't had a lot of parity. It's been the Warriors dominating. Before that, it was the Cavs and the Heat, dominating with LeBron. So we're finally getting some parity. So I understand why the NBA wanted to finish the season and get this season in as well. But it was really interesting that they didn't go straight into playoffs with the 8th seed on the East and the 8 seeds on the West. Like I mentioned before, they invited those teams. And I think this has to revolve around a couple people, but mostly around one man, one kid, Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson, as we got a brief glimpse of him at the end of the NBA season last year before the hiatus actually started, was an absolute monster. If you look into deep analytics, actually, Zion Williamson post up on the low block for a good stretch of the better half of about 3 weeks was the best play in basketball analytically, which is absolutely crazy to think about. That's coming from a 19-year-old kid. We knew he was good. We saw him dunking and doing all that crazy stuff at Duke. I don't know if anybody thought he would be this good this early. He seems like he's going to be a special young player in the NBA. And it's no coincidence that the criteria of how you could be invited if you weren't a playoff team to get into this sort of play-in tournament and still be invited to Orlando for NBA teams perfectly fit the New Orleans Pelicans, who are about 3.5 games back. Not impossible, but also they're not even the closest team back from the 8th spot. That would go to the Portland Trailblazers, who are actually ahead of them in the standings. So it's interesting that the NBA tried to make it so it wasn't just one team from each conference invited. That was 9 seeds. They wanted to expand it to as much as possible. I'm obviously also interested to see how the Trailblazers do, how Dame Lillard does, and obviously the San Antonio Spurs, historic franchise, keeping Pops, Coach Greg Popovich, playoff streak alive, which is always good to see. But yeah, this is revolving around Zion Williamson. This isn't something that I could have predicted that they were going to invite these many teams, but I could have told you that the NBA was going to do everything in their power to get Zion Williamson. He is the future of the league. He's the future face of the league. And when LeBron James leaves, and Giannis Antetokounmpo will still be here, obviously, but it's very clear that the NBA has identified Zion Williamson as the next big thing to lead them in the league and lead them necessarily, in ad revenue, things like that, become that face that LeBron has been for so many years and on as well. All right, so I want to also talk about, staying on this topic, I want to talk about some of the teams that, we are finally seeing the NBA come back, and I want to talk about some of the teams I believe have a chance to actually win the championship. Like I mentioned before, this isn't like years past where we just saw Cavs Warriors every year, or last year we knew it'd be Warriors and somebody. We didn't know if it would be like the Raptors or the Celtics or somebody it's finally a little bit of some clarity on, there's some newness. There's some new teams that could potentially win. Some teams could win their first championship, haven't won championships since, the late 70s, things like that. So let's just start with some of the teams who I believe have a real chance to win the championship this year. And I want to start off with obviously the big one, the Los Angeles Lakers. This was an absolutely massive year for the Los Angeles Lakers this year, who it appears ever since, the end of the Kobe Bryant years and after he retired, have just been stuck in turmoil, stuck in mediocrity, stuck at the bottom of the NBA. And then obviously, 2 off seasons ago, they signed LeBron James, and everybody thought this big turnaround was going to happen. And it didn't happen in that first year. Obviously, LeBron got hurt around Christmas time. They missed the playoffs. First time LeBron had missed the playoffs, and it seemed like ever, or really forever, he's missed the playoffs. But it appears that after they traded some guys, got Anthony Davis, got the right pieces around, surrounded LeBron with shooters, the traditional LeBron format, get him a co-star, and then get him shooters around him. The Lakers sat atop of the West this year, and it appears that things have finally turned around for the LA Lakers. They had an incredible season again, with 49 wins, only 14 losses. They had an outstanding away record as well. They were 26-6 on the road, and 23-8 at home. And the thing with the Lakers is, yes, it's LeBron James, but also it's about other people. It's about Anthony Davis, who's incredible. It's about Danny Green, who's incredible. It's about Avery Bradley, who's a lockdown defender. Yes, it's even about Alex Caruso, who's a spark off the bench. There's players on this team that fit LeBron so well that make me believe that he has a chance to win this championship. That make me believe as well that it's not going to be what we saw at the end with LeBron with the Cavs, where LeBron had to have a 63-point triple-double and even just to have a chance to win the game. There can be games in these playoffs where LeBron doesn't score 35, that he scores 28, which is obviously still incredible. Say LeBron scores 28, 5-5, the Lakers can still win that game with Anthony Davis, with the shooters around them, with the defense that they presence. Their defensive presence is one of the top of the NBA, led by obviously Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee. LeBron, when he chooses to really focus in on defense, is still one of the top defenders in the league, in my opinion. And it's really interesting to see how this full Lakers turnaround is finally in full effect. The NBA is better when the Lakers are better. So they are, I would say, my front runner to win the NBA championship this year. There's some other teams that I'll talk about in a minute, but if I had to bet money on someone to win the championship this year, it would be the Los Angeles Lakers. And don't forget that the hiatus, while it was sad that the NBA stopped, could actually prove to be beneficial to the Lakers. Everyone was talking about between, especially the Lakers and the Clippers, how the Clippers, had load management. Kawhi wouldn't play every game. Paul George wouldn't play every game. So they would be rested and ready to go for the playoffs. And a lot of people were worried that the Lakers could burn out, that LeBron is older. It's one of the oldest rosters in the entire NBA. And with just going full steam for all 82 games and going into the playoffs, it was a reasonable concern that the Lakers could be burnt out. They could be tired. They could be lackadaisical once you get later in the playoffs, and they could get run off the floor by these younger, long, athletic, rested teams like the Los Angeles Clippers. But now that we've had this couple months break, as long as everyone comes back in shape for the Lakers, then I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be in top performance and could actually have benefited from this break a little bit. Now, they're not going to get run off the floor, and while they are an older, veteran, aging team, their bodies will be in great shape, they'll feel great, they'll play great. So I think that this could have actually helped the Lakers, and like I mentioned before, they are definitely my favorites if I had to pick any team to win. Now let's go to the Eastern Conference real quick before I get back to the Western. The top of and the best team in the league, record-wise, is the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo obviously won the MVP last year. There's a lot of people who believe that he should win MVP this year, and you can certainly make that argument. The Bucks had a fantastic season, 53 wins, 12 losses, home record of 28-3, away record of 25-9. They were absolutely incredible this season. Giannis Antetokounmpo was obviously incredible. Chris Middleton had a great season. Eric Bledsoe had a great season. The way that Milwaukee plays and is coached it's interesting because a lot of teams have said, you need the three-point shooting, you need this, and they do. They have three-point shooting. Chris Middleton's a shooter. But Giannis Antetokounmpo isn't a shooter. Eric Bledsoe isn't a shooter, and they still find ways to get in the paint and win games. A lot of that has to do with Giannis, but I do believe that Coach Budenholzer deserves a lot of credit for the way that the Bucks play, the way the Bucks play defense especially. And I think the supporting cast around Giannis isn't as bad as some people make it out to be. Everyone says that Giannis is the one carrying it. And while Giannis, if he wasn't on the Bucks or isn't the superhuman that he was, the Bucks wouldn't obviously be as good. But don't sleep on Chris Middleton. Don't sleep on Eric Bledsoe. Don't sleep on those guys who put in the work and who play the D. Don't sleep on Brook Lopez as well. People who also contribute, who average those 12 to, in Chris Middleton's case, like 21, 22 points a game a night. Don't sleep on them. Those are huge guys when it comes to the playoffs. However, my concern with the Bucks is their playoff experience. They made the playoffs a couple times now, and it doesn't appear that they are one of those elite teams that you can count in, night out in the playoffs. When it comes to the Bucks, Giannis is obviously good. He will stat pad it up. He will have great games in the playoffs, but it doesn't seem to translate to actually any wins. Chris Middleton is known and has a reputation of not stepping up in the big moments, in the big games, in those playoff games. So if you ask me, I would probably say that the Bucks are the favorite to come out of the East, but I don't think they can beat a lot of the top tier teams in the West. Not to mention, there are teams in the East that have had their number in the past couple seasons, and I'll get to those teams in a minute. But now let's go back to the Western Conference, who a lot of people, this team was pegged as the clear favorite to win, and that's the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers are interesting because we actually don't have a huge sample size of what their team looks like at fully healthy. Kawhi obviously battled injuries or load management, whatever you want to call it. Paul George battled some injuries, even maybe some load management, whatever you want to call it. And we actually didn't get a huge sample size of what it was like to see when Kawhi and Paul George were on the same court together, how they played, how they meshed. And the few games we did, though, the Clippers looked absolutely unstoppable. They have a world-class coach in Doc Rivers. They are surrounded by fantastic players. It's not just Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. They have the best bench in the league by far. Lou Williams should really win Sixth Man of the Year every year. We don't give him enough credit for that. Montrezl Harrell, absolute beast, physical, bench spark that, it's hard to quantify him as a bench spark when he averages 20 points a game. But he's considered that energy guy, and he's probably the best energy guy in the league if you're going to categorize him like that. But what's really interesting about the Clippers is, like I mentioned before, the Lakers might be benefiting from this long hiatus break. The Clippers will obviously benefit too. If there are guys who are being hurt, they will obviously, hopefully heal and recover and be ready to go. But I do think that in the back of their head, they knew that they were going to be fresh for the playoffs no matter what. And now that the Lakers have gotten this long break, some other teams like the Bucks have been getting this long break. Bucks are another team that goes full out every single night. No load management, no rest games, very few injuries. They also could have been burnt out when you get in the later half, especially if the Bucks had a couple of Game 7 series in the second round against, the Celtics, the Sixers. To go into the later part of the playoffs, the more you go, the more rest and the more healthy, obviously. Being healthy obviously matters. And for the Clippers, they kind of had already pre-planned that at the beginning of the season. So it's going to be really interesting to see how, without that advantage that they were maybe planning on having going into the playoffs, how will they still perform? If I had to pick a second team, again, this could sound boring, but if I had to rank those last three teams that I just mentioned about who I believed would actually win the championship, definitely Lakers number 1, definitely Clippers number 2. I probably would give the Bucks number 3 because I do think the Bucks could beat those other teams that I'll mention in a minute from both the East and West. But those three teams, in my opinion, are the championship bubble, are those teams that actually have the capacity to win a championship this year, and a team that I would bet money on and feel confident in that bet in as well. Now let's get about some of those teams who are going to make the playoffs, obviously through this new NBA format, but they're just outside of the bubble on why I believe they could or couldn't make the playoff or make the championship. We're going to start with the Boston Celtics. I absolutely love this Celtics roster. I love everything about Kemba Walker. I love everything about Jason Tatum. I love everything about Brad Stevens. I love everything about Jaylen Brown. I just don't think they're ready yet, if that makes any sense. For them to consistently beat these great teams, as we've seen, you need everything from Jason Tatum. You need Jason Tatum at age 22 to have a 40-point game, have a 35-point game, and then they can beat the teams like the Clippers, the Lakers, as we saw in the regular season. And I love Kemba Walker, but he had a down year this year. Kemba Walker's stats were there, but his efficiency was not. He had a poor shooting percentage from three, a poor shooting percentage from the field. And you could see it on the court that Kemba Walker was meant to come into the Celtics as be this great player, be even like a superhero version of Isaiah Thomas was a couple years ago, replace Kyrie Irving. And as we got closer and closer to the end of the season, it wasn't as much about Kemba Walker as it was about Jason Tatum, as it was about Jaylen Brown, as it was about Brad Stevens, as it was about Marcus Smart. And it seemed that almost Kemba Walker was starting to take a back seat specifically to Jason Tatum, which is not a bad thing, specifically for the future. Kemba Walker's almost 30, Jason Tatum's 22, and Jason Tatum looks like a player who's going to be averaging the league lead in scoring for the next decade. Something crazy like that. He's long, he can shoot, he can dunk, he can play defense, he's athletic as hell. You've seen it. You've all seen it. He had an incredible leap this year, and there's a good case to be made that he should win Most Improved. But I don't think that a Jason Tatum-led Celtics team just yet could win a championship. Do I think a Jason Tatum-led Celtics team, 3, 4, 5 years from now, when Jason Tatum's in his prime, could a Jason Tatum-led Celtics team lead championship there yet? During that time? Absolutely. But Jason Tatum at 22, with that amount of pressure, I know he could probably handle it, but I don't see a way where without Kemba Walker really stepping up and taking control of this team, I don't see how the Celtics could win a championship. They seem to me like Eastern Conference Finals cap. They would give the Bucks a good run for their money, maybe a 6, even 7-game series against the Bucks. They've had their number in the past, but I think that the Bucks team is a little bit different this year. I think they're tougher. I think they play more defense. They have this experience, second year in the Mike Budenholzer system. And I love the Celtics, and I love everything about them, but I think they're a year or two away unless Kemba Walker really steps up. Now heading to the West, some of the other bubble teams who I don't think, even though they had a great season, are, championship contender. That would be the Nuggets, who I love, but again, the Nuggets seem so young, and it's almost ridiculous to look at their age. Jamal Murray is only like 23. Jokic is only like 24. Like, it's kind of ridiculous how young they are. And a lot of people forget about the Nuggets. The Nuggets were third in the West, and they were actually only about a game and a half back from being second in the West, passing the Clippers. So it's really interesting to see how the Nuggets have been like this under the radar team. They went 43-22 this year, 25-8 at home. Their road record was not as good as the other teams. They went 18-14. So compared to the Lakers 26-6. So you can tell that they're a more home-oriented team, which makes sense being, in Denver with the high altitude and everything like that. But I just think that the Nuggets are still, I don't want to say one piece away because I love their roster, but I think they are one piece away. I think if they could trade for someone like a Bradley Beal in the offseason, maybe even, acquire a small forward, that's someone that could be more of an athletic wing guy, someone like a Jason Tatum. They're obviously not going to get Jason Tatum, but maybe if they get someone in the draft and free agency, somebody like that, they need more athleticism in my opinion. Jokic is obviously a phenomenal player, an incredible talent, an incredible passing big man, an incredible shooting big man. And he's going to put up numbers no matter who you have on him, and he'll be great in the playoffs. But just stacking up to these other teams like the Lakers and the Clippers, I don't see how the Nuggets are going to be able to, get through that threshold, beat the Lakers in a 7-game series. I mean, when you really think about it, it comes down, do you trust the Nuggets to beat the Lakers, to beat the Clippers 4 times? I just don't right now. I don't now. Maybe soon, maybe later, but just not now. And the final team I want to talk about in the playoffs in this NBA segment is the Houston Rockets. Obviously one of the most interesting teams, like they always are. It's going to be really interesting to see how James Harden comes back, what kind of shape James Harden's going to be in, what kind of shape Russell Westbrook's going to be in. They're world-class athletes. I wouldn't doubt that they wouldn't come in phenomenal shape. Harden obviously had an incredible year. He's going to lead the league in scoring again. A lot of people think he could win MVP. I personally don't. I think it should be LeBron James. But I just don't trust the Rockets in the playoffs. I just don't. I don't trust James Harden in the playoffs. I haven't seen it once, and I don't think I'll see it really this year as well. These top tier playoff performances. He dropped 60 points with ease. Where are the 55? Where are the 60-point games in the playoffs? Russell Westbrook as well. Where's Russell Westbrook with the efficient 20-point triple-double? I haven't seen those in the playoffs yet, so I don't trust the Rockets to make it that far as well. The Rockets and Nuggets seem like two teams that are going to, beat their first-round matchup, make it to the second round, and lose to those, juggernauts like the Lakers or the Clippers, and it'll be really interesting. But to close this segment yet again, the 3 teams I would bet on to win the NBA championship: Lakers, Clippers, Bucks. They have the best chance. And there are a lot of good teams in this league. The Celtics, like I mentioned, the Rockets, Nuggets. But those 3 teams, don't be fooled. There is parity in the NBA this year, and it's absolutely awesome. But don't be fooled. There are really 3 teams that have a real chance of winning this year, and that's the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Bucks. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Quick commercial break here. And then when I get back, we're going to be talking about the Michael Jordan documentary and what it means for LeBron James and Michael Jordan's legacy.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Back. I just finished talking about who I think will win the NBA championship this year, talking about their new format, talking about Zion Williamson, and sticking on the NBA topic while the NBA was sadly gone. ESPN blessed us with maybe the best sports documentary I have ever seen in The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, the 10-part docuseries that, just finished airing about a couple weeks ago. It was absolutely incredible. I remember sitting, maybe it was even like 2-3 years ago when they announced that a Michael Jordan documentary was in the works and was coming out in 2020. And I remember thinking how far away that was. And to be honest with you, I completely forgot about it until, they re-announced that they were going to, air it. I think it was supposed to come out, early fall, even maybe around Christmas time. And obviously with the hiatus and the break, ESPN just bumped it up to, a couple weeks ago. And it was absolutely incredible. It was real. It was authentic. It was everything I ever wanted to see about Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan was so honest during it as well. They didn't shy away from anything, which I also loved, which I think this will, lead me into talking about Michael Jordan's legacy. So I'll just get into it now. I don't know if there would have been a way where this diminished Michael Jordan's legacy. I don't think anything can diminish Michael Jordan's legacy, but this was awesome. Like, we got to see a side of Michael Jordan that everybody kind of knew about on the court through some limited interviews, through people talking about Michael Jordan, his former teammates, but all of the interview clips with Michael, they were real, they were authentic, they were unapologetic, and I absolutely loved it. It kept me engaged and kept me interested throughout the 10-part series. I loved how Michael Jordan didn't apologize for. This is weird, we live in a world now where like everything you got to apologize. There's a lot of apologies, things like that. But Michael Jordan, talked about Isaiah Thomas, talked about how they didn't like each other, how there was beef there, that there was arguments there, that there was fighting there, that he might not have wanted Isaiah Thomas on the Dream Team, but that he wasn't the only one that didn't want Isaiah. They talked about the no handshaking thing during that great finals, and it was really awesome to see how Michael Jordan still carried these grudges, still carried these slights. It seemed like every episode, Michael Jordan would be, I don't know, something, he would be practicing and another kid would come up and say like, hey, Michael, like, I'm going to school you tonight or something like that. And Michael Jordan would go right into the camera and be like, that made it personal for me. And it would show Michael Jordan dropped 45, he dropped 50, he dropped 60 at any age when he was, 27, when he was, 35. It was absolutely incredible to watch. It was really also cool to see Phil Jackson, the coach, him juggling all these things. The great Dennis Rodman stories, those were awesome to see as well. They obviously talked about the Steve Kerr punching incident. But what I also really loved about the Michael Jordan documentary, and why I think this boosts his legacy, is that they didn't shy away from anything. They talked about the gambling issue that, some people believe he has. They talked about his father. They talked about how aggressive he was with teammates, how some teammates were scared of him, how, they didn't shy away from practice fight stories. They didn't shy away from his personal life. They didn't shy away from Michael Jordan's clear discontent and clear distrust with the media, especially back then. And it was really interesting to see how, like I mentioned before, how authentic it was and how real it made Michael Jordan look. Because when you look at Michael Jordan, you think of a superhero, you think of a Superman, you think of someone who's at the top of the world. But it really brought the human side out of Michael. And I thought that was absolutely incredible to watch, incredible to see firsthand. But it's really interesting as well, when Michael Jordan decided to make this documentary, it's not a coincidence if you think it is. Obviously, this documentary was filmed in the late 90s during The Last Dance. The documentary is called The Last Dance, which, yes, it's about the last Chicago Bulls season, but in reality, it's about the Chicago Bulls dynasty, and it's a real deep dive on Michael Jordan specifically. But the documentary came out in 2020. So why wait 19 years? Why wait 20 years? Why not, if it was filmed in, 1998, 1999, why not get a documentary and just get it pumped out and be ready in, 2002, 2003, early 2000s? There was no need for it then, in Michael Jordan's eyes, but there was a need for it now, and if you look at the reports, you look at the articles, Michael Jordan finally decided to make this documentary, release this footage, right after LeBron James came back 3-1 and beat the San Francisco Warriors now, and beat the Golden State Warriors in 2016. And it's not a coincidence that, that was the year that Michael Jordan decided to do it. If you remember, right after LeBron beat the Warriors and came back 3-1, the conversation of, is LeBron James better than Michael Jordan? It had been going on before that as well, but once LeBron got his third championship, the title for Cleveland, and obviously came back 3-1, and some consider, you can definitely make the argument that might be the greatest sports championship ever, greatest comeback ever. That's up there with Tom Brady's 28-3, other things like that. But there was a real conversation, and there were a lot of people making arguments that Michael Jordan was not the greatest basketball player ever anymore, and it was LeBron James. So it's not a coincidence that right after that championship in 2016, Michael Jordan decided to make this documentary to remind everybody who he was, and he did. He reminded everybody exactly who he was, exactly who he still is, really. He still seems like this, it comes off in the interview, he still seems like this almost like not real figure, this ghost that's just impossible to one up, to beat, to slight. And everything that if you wrong him once, or if you slight him, or even if you just talk a little bit of trash, he'll absolutely destroy you. And it was awesome to see. The editing was fantastic. But this is the analogy I want to make. This isn't a typical, who's better, LeBron, who's better, Jordan. We can go on and on about that. LeBron's got stats that are going to seem that he's better. Jordan's got, accolades and stats that are going to make it seem that he's better. But I want to tell you what my analogy is for LeBron James and Michael Jordan and how LeBron James could potentially catch Michael Jordan. So if I had to say right now, who is the better player, I would take Michael Jordan. Absolutely, I'd take Michael Jordan. I don't think it's this huge gap that some people talk about, how it's not close, how, this shouldn't even be a debate. No, you can make arguments that LeBron James is better, 100%. You can make arguments that he's a better passer, that he's a more reliable teammate, that, he would have the same amount of championships if it wasn't for the level of competition, how that was different. LeBron could be considered a better shooter, a better defender even in some stances, but I wouldn't agree with that. Things like that. So, if you ask me, I would take Michael Jordan right now. There are ways that I think LeBron can catch up, but I'll get into that in a minute. But if I had to, this is what I tell people when me and other people get into the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James debate. You have to take in consideration the different eras and that they are two different players, two different play styles, two different eras, two different I said eras, but two different NBAs. Just the way the NBA is run, the way the NBA is played. When Michael Jordan was playing, it was dominated by 7-footers, and obviously Michael was not a 7-footer. When LeBron came into this league, it was dominated by 7-footers, and then it switched to dominated by shooting guards. And now LeBron had to adapt. LeBron had to learn how to shoot. LeBron had to, he was always this great passer, but had to, learn how to drive and kick, and rely on the drive and kick more than just getting to the, getting up to the rim and things like that. I compare Michael Jordan and LeBron James to another great debate when we were kids. Who's better, a lion or a tiger? Well, it's interesting because you can make the case that, a tiger or a cheetah is better than a lion. That it's, a cheetah's faster than a lion. Maybe a tiger's stronger than a lion. Maybe a tiger's bigger than a lion. But when it comes down to it, who is the king of the jungle? And what are we always taught? The lion is the king of the jungle. He's the top of the food chain. He's the one who dominates. And that's how I feel about the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James debate. That LeBron might be bigger, LeBron might be faster, LeBron might be stronger, LeBron might even be the better overall player, but he's not Michael Jordan. And that seems crazy and that seems illogical, but when you really think about it, and especially after watching that documentary, it really hit me. Michael Jordan is something bigger than just a basketball player. Not that LeBron isn't. LeBron obviously is more than an athlete. He's an incredible activist. He's an incredible support for his community and really the world. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, the political side or anything like that or the business side. I'm talking about just this character that LeBron James doesn't... He has this aura of greatness, obviously, but for whatever reason, there's just something unexplainable about Michael Jordan. There's something that's almost stuff of legend, stuff of myth that you have to see to believe. Things like that, we saw in the documentary and you can see on highlights, but... I think the documentary really captured that essence of Michael Jordan, how he is this myth, he is this lone wolf that just dominates and will win at all costs no matter what it is. And I don't get that same feeling than what I do with LeBron James. And I think it's just, like I mentioned before, with the lion and the cheetah argument or the tiger argument, LeBron might be faster, bigger, stronger, but he's just not the lion. He's just not Michael Jordan. And this isn't about the standard debate of, LeBron doesn't have the killer instinct. No, LeBron absolutely has the killer instinct. He absolutely dominates. LeBron is absolutely clutch. LeBron is absolutely an all-time great player, all-time great talent. But there's just something about Michael Jordan that I don't see with LeBron James. There's obviously other arguments, 5 rings, or 6 rings, you can give him all the standard stuff. But I don't think it's also fair to completely close the book either. Like I said before, I would take Michael Jordan. He is the lion. He is the dominant figure. He is this stuff of myth. But I don't think that it's impossible for LeBron James to catch him, if that makes any sense. Do I think it's unlikely? I would probably say it is, but there are certain obtainable goals that he can absolutely get. So I'm going to give you a couple of those right now. First things first, I think LeBron James, and I think this is a goal of his as well. Of course it's a goal of his. I think he needs to finish as the all-time scoring champion, which is currently held by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, another all-time great player. I think LeBron will get that, to be honest with you, if he plays as long as he wants to play, which is, at least till 40. he is on pace, if he keeps up this current mantra, to definitely beat that record. And I think LeBron James will retire as the all-time scoring champion. So for me personally, to really make the argument that LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan, then I would need to see LeBron be the all-time scorer, definitely. Now, in regards to championships, I'm actually not one of those people that believe that in order for a conversation to happen between LeBron and Jordan, that LeBron needs to get 6 championships. I don't. I think if LeBron wins, I think LeBron needs to win more championships. I don't think that he's sitting at, I think, 3 right now, which is great. Obviously, 3-time NBA championship is nothing to be scourged about, nothing to, diss or anything like that. But I think that LeBron should, and I think he will, win 1 championship with the Lakers. So that will bring LeBron as a 4-time NBA champion, a champion with 3 different organizations, a championship with 2 championships with the Miami Heat, a championship with his hometown Cavaliers, and now a championship with maybe the biggest brand in sports, the Los Angeles Lakers. I could see people saying that that's enough. A 4-time NBA champion and an all-time scoring a 4-time NBA champion with 3 different historic franchises, or not really historic franchises, 3 different franchises, and the all-time scoring champion. For me, I'd like to see LeBron get 5 championships and the all-time scoring champion, and then you can really make the argument that LeBron is better. Now, is it 2 championships with the Lakers? That's what I would assume it would be, but it's not confirmed. LeBron could go back to Cleveland. He's mentioned before wanting to play with his son when his son hits the NBA in, I think, 4 or 5 years, around then. But if you ask me, if LeBron James won 5 championships and was the all-time scoring champion, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people started to lean towards LeBron James if he did that, including myself. Now, if LeBron gets to 6, let's say somehow he wins 3, I don't think he will, but let's say he wins 3 championships with the Lakers, finishes the all-time scoring champion, then I think without a doubt LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. But the more realistic, I think LeBron's career will end. I think he'll end up being a 4-time champion, 1 with the Lakers at least. I think he'll finish the all-time scoring champion, and I think that would stay with me. He would probably still be the 2nd greatest player of all time, but it'd be really close. But if he did get to that 5th championship, or even that 6th championship, it's going to be really hard and really difficult to not, to ignore LeBron James in the way that he did things throughout his career. But again, we're always going to go back and forth with Michael Jordan and LeBron. But going back, to the beginning of this segment, which was the documentary, I loved it. I thought it was, like I mentioned before, real, authentic, genuine. And I just want to go through a couple of my favorite stories. I'm sure you guys had awesome, favorite stories too. That Dennis Rodman, Carmen Electra story was absolutely wild. I know there was a bunch of them in specific. The one where, in the middle of the season, Dennis Rodman went up to, the coach and said, Phil Jackson, and said, I need a break. I need to go to Vegas. So Dennis Rodman went on this, Vegas bender almost, and Michael Jordan had to go get him out of Vegas, out of bed with Carmen Electra, to drag him back to practice, drag him back to the games. And that was obviously all-time stuff, stories that we haven't heard before coming from the people. It was absolutely incredible to see that. Another awesome story that I like, this is also Dennis Rodman, this documentary gave credit to some people that, you didn't even, we obviously knew who Dennis Rodman was, but we didn't know, how Dennis Rodman worked, how Dennis Rodman practiced. We knew he was a hustler, we knew he was a grinder, but there was a segment where Dennis Rodman was explaining to him, to the interviewer, how he figured out how to rebound the ball. So Dennis Rodman's one of the greatest all-time rebounders of all time, obviously, but he's not a 7-footer, he's not, 7'3", he's not even, I think Dennis Rodman's only 6'5", 6'6", which is incredible how he averaged, I think for a certain point, 20 rebounds a game, which is absolutely incredible. And Dennis Rodman memorized and figured out that by the way the ball spins and where it hits the rim, then he could predict where the ball would be going as it hit the rim and where it would go for a rebound. And that's absolutely incredible. So you combine that knowledge, which is incredible that it came from Dennis Rodman, with such a cool segment, and you combine that with his grinding, his hustling, and you see why he's arguably the greatest rebounder of all time. And it was absolutely awesome to watch. The Steve Kerr punching story was absolutely awesome as well. Some of the Dream Team, I think it was really cool that they obviously talked about the Dream Team. They talked about a legendary Dream Team practice, where, just these all-time greats, Magic, Bird, Jordan, who was, I think, still really young at the time, going at it in practice, talking trash, scoring on each other, dunking on each other, the things, and there was some footage of it, which was absolutely awesome to see, the things that people, I think, would pay for to just watch those practices, maybe even more than an NBA game. It was absolutely incredible and awesome to see. But yeah, I think that documentary reintroduced who Michael Jordan was, to maybe some people who didn't see him play. But again, it's not a coincidence why and when he released it. It's to protect his brand, It's not that like LeBron was attacking his brand or anything like that, but LeBron was creeping up. LeBron was starting to make the argument of, look, I am the greatest player of all time. I am the chosen one. And Michael Jordan, I think, just wanted to release this documentary to reintroduce himself. So it was really awesome to see. We're going to take another commercial break, but coming up after the commercial break, we're going to be talking about the Tom Brady, New England Patriots divorce. And don't forget, at the end of today's episode, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 young NFL quarterbacks in the league today. Really awesome list. Stick around to see it. And we're going to take a quick break. And on the other side, we're going to be talking about Tom Brady and the Patriots.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alright, and we're back. Just finished the segment talking about Michael Jordan and his outstanding documentary that he did with ESPN, The Last Dance. And speaking of which, recently after that documentary ended, Tom Brady actually announced that he would be doing a documentary as well next year, 2021, and hopefully we'll get a little bit of clarity in the documentary on why he actually decided to leave the Patriots and what was that split between him and Bill Belichick and the Patriots organization. I have my own theories, and I'll get to those in a minute, but if you didn't know, in the NFL offseason, Tom Brady took his talents to Tampa Bay to join the Buccaneers. 20-year career with the Patriots, arguably the greatest of all time, all that stuff, six Super Bowl rings, absolutely incredible stuff. There's nothing that you can do to kind of diminish Tom Brady. There's nothing that he'll do to change his legacy. But yeah, if you didn't know, he went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to kind of restart a new chapter in his life, and it's going to be really awesome to see. But before we get into how I think Tom Brady and the Buccaneers will do, and how the Patriots will do without Tom Brady, I just want to give my personal theory on why Tom Brady actually left the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So for my theory on why Tom Brady actually decided to leave the Patriots, I want to take you back to 2017. So in 2017, Tom Brady arguably put together his greatest performance in his entire career after he came back after being down 28-3 in the third quarter to beat the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl, and at that time earned his 5th championship ring. Arguably his greatest performance of all time, obviously the greatest performance by any, maybe even athlete of all time. And going into that offseason, Jimmy Garoppolo was still on the roster, and there were reports starting to come out that Belichick, in his classic Belichick ways, wanted to get rid of players a year early versus a year too late, and it appeared that Belichick was starting to signal that it was Tom's time to move on. And in fact, there were negotiations, and a potential deal could have been reached of trading Tom Brady to potentially, I think Bill Belichick wanted to trade Tom Brady to the San Francisco 49ers. Instead, it appeared that Kraft was not a part of it, and obviously Tom maybe was hurt by that, or, that relationship started to deteriorate from there. And obviously we know the reports that have been almost confirmed that Tom wanted Jimmy Garoppolo out of there. He didn't want a sense of, someone, his replacement was on the roster, or that, they were getting ready to move off of Tom soon. I think Tom wanted from the Patriots this commitment that I am your guy. After everything I've done for you for, at that point, it was about, 17 years. Why are you having my replacement back me up? Why are you maybe trying to trade me to San Francisco? Why are you trying to get rid of me a year early versus a year late? When, in my opinion, there is no year early, there is no year late. I'm going to be this good forever. I'm going to be this good for this more years until I retire. So I think that's when the relationship between Belichick and Tom Brady really started to hit a tailspin. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo was traded to San Francisco, for that second round pick, which a lot of people think was a poor trade from the Patriots. They could have gotten more. Jimmy Garoppolo obviously is a fantastic player for San Francisco, just took them to a Super Bowl. So maybe Bill Belichick was right that maybe they should have hung on to Jimmy G, but they did. Of course, the year after, or maybe the year after that, they eventually, the Patriots did end up being the Rams, getting Tom Brady's 6th ring and kind of putting all the haters to bed again, like he usually does. But I think that this aspect of commitment is the real reason why not only did Tom Brady leave the Patriots, but why this theme has been longer than it has been. That's just the first sign of decommitment from the Patriots. Now, it doesn't appear that once did Tom Brady get this lucrative extension from the Patriots throughout his entire career, even early on after, the first 3 Super Bowls. Tom Brady never got this lucrative extension being the highest paid quarterback in the league. Never. It was always the Patriot way, the Patriot system, about the team. It's not just one guy. And I think Tom Brady started to realize that he wasn't going to get that recognition. He wasn't going to get that commitment from the Patriots anymore. Tom Brady, before this most recent season, asked for an extension from the Patriots, and they wouldn't give it to him. So I think the Patriots wanted to kind of play it with Tom as like 1 year at a time, and when you fall off the cliff, we'll be done with you and we'll move on. And I think Tom wanted some more faith, some more reassurance, some more, like I've been mentioning, long-term commitment from the Patriots to actually be able to, build a roster, know that he's going to be there for the foreseeable future, and not all this uncertainty of, did Tom do good enough where we should keep him or get rid of him, or is he going to retire, and all this stuff. I think Tom wanted that commitment, and maybe even honestly that money as well. So I think that's one of the main themes: commitment and trust, and more credit even, from Bill Belichick and Tom Brady's standpoint of why they potentially split up. So he obviously goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers instead. It was really interesting, like I mentioned before, how he wanted an extension last offseason. He obviously went on the Howard Stern show, and I think he actually said that at the beginning of this most recent season, he knew that he was probably going to leave, and I think that goes back to him not getting that extension, him knowing that it would be hard to get that extension from the Patriots, and it probably wasn't going to work out. And I think it's awesome to see that Tom Brady's, going to a different team. It's obviously dominated the headlines in the NFL circles for the better part of the last 3 months. And, people have been comparing this to, Michael Jordan went to the Wizards, or, these older guys switching teams late in their career. Chris Carter was on the Dolphins for a little point. Randy Moss, at the end of his career on the Titans, just things like that. And I don't actually see it that way. I think Tom Brady leaving teams is more like a LeBron going to the Lakers, a LeBron going to the Heat, than it is a Michael Jordan going to the Wizards, or, a Randy Moss just kind of traveling around different teams, or a Shaquille O'Neal traveling around different teams. I think Tom really does believe that there's a real chance that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could win a championship here. He obviously signed a 2-year extension. That obviously signals that this might only be a 2-year gig, a 2-year run, that Tom might retire after that. But I'm not here going to speculate on when Tom Brady's going to retire. I've done that for too long. Everyone's been making guesses for too long. No one really knows when he's going to retire. But now let's get into both sides of this, divorce or split, and who I believe will actually, if there is a term like winning the split or winning the divorce, who will come out on the other side looking better than the other. Because this is finally, hopefully, going to answer the age-old football question we've all been asking since like 2001 is, who is it? Is it Tom Brady? Is the reason why the Patriots dynasty happened Tom Brady? Or is it Bill Belichick? And I think that this is the closest we're actually going to get, this experience that we're all going to witness over the next couple of seasons, is really the only way we're really going to see and hopefully get an answer to this question on who deserves more credit. So let's get into it. I think it's going to be interesting to see, because obviously it's not necessarily fair. It's not going to be necessarily even, because in my opinion, I think that Bill Belichick's probably going to coach and be the head coach of the Patriots longer than Tom Brady's probably going to continue to play. For example, if Tom actually does end up retiring after his current contract with the Buccaneers, which is only 2 years, I don't think Bill Belichick's only going to coach for 2 more years. I think he's going to coach longer than that. So it is a little bit, it's hard to, it's not on an even level. Like, it's not like we don't know for a fact that Bill Belichick's going to be coaching for 10 more years and Tom Brady's going to be playing for 10 more years. So it's probably not going to be even. But I think it's pretty obvious that at least initially Tom Brady's going to look better on this end. Once he went to the Buccaneers, we knew all the weapons and all the talent that they have. Buccaneers have Mike Evans, who's maybe the most underrated receiver in the league. I think probably a top 5 receiver in the league. Chris Godwin's an absolute speed demon. He's incredible. He's an absolute animal. The Buccaneers actually had 2,000-yard receivers last year, which not many teams can say that they have. They were one of them. And if you think that Tom Brady isn't excited about that, or doesn't know about that, or that wasn't in there, and you already know he's absolutely, drooling at the mouth to get able to play with those guys. They also have a great tight end room at Brate, Howard, and obviously they brought, Rob Gronkowski out of retirement, which was a really interesting thing to see because honestly, when Tom went to Tampa Bay, I think everybody's initial reaction was like, well, I think Gronk would have fun there. And, it was kind of quiet. No one really mentioned it. And all of a sudden out of nowhere, Gronk informed the Patriots he wants to come back, but he wants to play with Tom in Tampa Bay, and they traded the rights. And it's going to be so awesome to see, the Brady-Gronk connection back. Tom, I think, mentioned on Howard Stern that he wants to have a little bit more fun playing football. Bruce Arians is completely different from Bill Belichick. Bruce Arians is a great coach in his own right, but he's more free-flowing. Offense is also completely different. It's more air raid, things like that. So I think what we're going to see this year is Tom Brady, which we haven't seen really in a long time, I think Tom Brady's going to constantly throw the ball down the field. And it's going to be interesting to see how Tom Brady's arm holds up. Everyone says, well, the arm's lost a step, the velocity's lost a step. And in Tom Brady's own right, so Tom Brady last year was considered him that he was, was falling off the cliff and, they didn't have a great end to last year. Tom Brady last year still threw for over 4,000 yards, still threw for 24 touchdowns, still threw for only 8 interceptions. So a down year considered for him? Sure. But when you really think about it, that's not a down year. It's a down year for Tom Brady is different for a down year for other people, but Tom Brady is still an effective quarterback, and I'm not going to put it past him that he's still an elite quarterback. Tom Brady knows how to make decisions with the ball, knows how to get the ball out quickly, knows the reads to make, and I still think he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. And if you give him these weapons, you give him a Mike Evans, who, when you really look at it, Mike Evans is probably the best receiver that Tom Brady has played with since Randy Moss. Then you look at Rob Gronkowski coming back after taking a year off. His body's going to be feeling a lot better. Chris Godwin is one of the best receivers Tom Brady's ever played with. Bruce Arians probably is giving Tom more reins in the offense, more input on the offense. What do you want to run? How do you want to run it? We don't really know yet if Bruce Arians is going to change. They've been traditionally, the Buccaneers in the Bruce Arians system, like I mentioned before, has been an air raid offense, throw the ball down the field, 4 wide, 5 wide even sometimes. Is he going to switch that? Is it going to be more what they ran in New England, get the ball out quick? I don't think so. I think we're actually going to see Tom Brady really just slinging it around, a little bit more gunslinger attitude, throwing the ball downfield, throwing it 40, 50 yards instead of just these, Edelman slants and Edelman outs that we've been seeing for the better part of, really the last 5 years. We're finally going to see Tom Brady throwing these deep balls to their outstanding receivers. And don't sleep on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense either. They had a rough start, but their defensive coordinator is Todd Bowles, who, in my opinion, is one of the best coordinators in the league. He obviously struggled as the head coach of the New York Jets, but as a defensive coordinator, it's really hard to beat Todd Bowles, if you're trying to look for someone who's better than him at the defensive coordinator position. So, and obviously, if you look at the last half of the last season, so the final 8 games, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a top 5 defense, essentially, and, yards per game allowed, points allowed, all that, things like that. Not to mention that, they were one of the more, better pass rushing teams, like one of the teams leading the league in sacks. So don't sleep on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady obviously chose it for a reason. I am one of those believers that I do think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could absolutely win a Super Bowl this year. And it's no surprise that Tom Brady wants to do something yet again that no one has ever done. The Super Bowl this year in Tampa Bay. Tom Brady, I think, wants to be the first quarterback ever to play a Super Bowl and definitely, hopefully, maybe even win a Super Bowl in his own home stadium. Another thing to add to the Tom Brady trophy cabinet would be absolutely incredible to see. What I'm most excited about also is that we get to see Drew Brees versus Tom Brady twice a year this year. Who knows if that'll continue through, like, after that, but this, in particular, is going to be absolutely awesome to see Tom Brady, Drew Brees, yet again. We haven't seen them a whole lot, go back and forth, but it's going to be really awesome to see that twice a year. Not to mention, there's also other good teams in the division. We get to see Matt Rule, Carolina Panthers, go against them. Matt Ryan and Atlanta Falcons get to go against Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. I think that what's really interesting about this Buccaneers team is that it's weird. So when teams, struggle with that quarterback, Jameis Winston last year, second in the league in passing yards, but 30 touchdowns, 30 picks, one of the weirdest seasons of all time. When teams, it appears they move off their starting quarterback, they actually bring in someone that's almost the complete opposite. So Jameis Winston seems to be this air raid, Ryan Fitzpatrick-esque almost, like touchdown interception, wild, crazy, while Tom Brady isn't going to turn the ball over. Maybe he isn't going to throw the ball more downfield, although I think that'll change this year. And I think that it's interesting how we're going to see this systematic change with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where they might go from zero to hero all of a sudden, and I really can't wait to see it. Now let's get to the Patriots side of this split. Like I mentioned before, I think Tom initially is going to look better at the better end of all this, but let's say Tampa Bay doesn't win a Super Bowl, in the 2 years, totally possible. And maybe even realistic that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers don't win a Super Bowl in Tom Brady's tenure there. Let's say it's only 2 years. And Bill Belichick, let's say 4 years down the line, wins a Super Bowl with the Patriots. Then there's going to be discussions on, actually it was Bill and not Tom. And Tom didn't win anything after Bill and things like that. So I think it's going to be initially Tom Brady, and then eventually it'll be, maybe even Bill Belichick. But I don't buy into the Patriot hype this year. Vegas has them winning 9 games still. I completely disagree. I think this Tom Brady-less Patriots is a completely depleted roster. They lost players like Kyle Van Noy. They lost Tom Brady. They're only getting older. They're one of the oldest rosters in the league. Their division got better. The Buffalo Bills obviously made the playoffs last year. The Miami Dolphins obviously added a ton of free agents. The Jets did as well. So, not to mention, they also have the hardest schedule in the league. So, no, I don't think the Patriots are going to win the division this year, and I don't think the Patriots are actually going to make the playoffs this year. I don't believe in the Jarrett Stidham hype. I've watched a lot of highlights. I've watched a lot of tape of him from his days at Auburn, also some preseason snaps that he had with the Patriots. I don't see a Jimmy Garoppolo in him. I don't see really even a Jacoby Brissett in him either, another Patriot backup, former Patriot backup, I should say. When Jimmy Garoppolo was a part of the Patriots, as soon as Jimmy Garoppolo was drafted by the Patriots, we saw all this chatter of, that's Tom Brady's replacement. When are they going to actually give it to him? Everything was like so micromanaged, and everything was under the microscope, every snap that Jimmy Garoppolo took, every practice that he took, everything. We all knew that Jimmy Garoppolo was drafted to replace Tom Brady at some point. It obviously didn't work out that way, traded to San Francisco, like I mentioned earlier. I never saw that same hype when it came to Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham was drafted in the 4th round. Great kid, great prospect. He's got a pretty decent arm. He struggles with footwork. He's a little bit more mobile than Tom Brady and some of the other quarterbacks that the Patriots have had, but he's not the most accurate thrower of the football. He's got a nice arm. It's not great. And I'm not trying to diminish him in any way. It's just, he's not on the same level as Jimmy Garoppolo for me, and I don't think he's the Patriots' long-term answer at quarterback. In my opinion, the Patriots know exactly what they're doing, and they're retooling. I'm not going to call it tanking by any stretch of the imagination. They're definitely not tanking. There were talks of, some teams last year tanking, things like that. But in my opinion, the Patriots need to get younger, they need to get faster, they need to get more athletic, and they need to find their quarterback. And that's not Jarrett Stidham. If you're asking me what I believe the Patriots are doing, the Patriots this year accumulated draft picks, let free agents walk for free, which you initially think that doesn't make any sense. You don't get anything out of that. But actually, maybe even around this time next year, or no, before the draft next year, the supplemental picks will come out, which is like these extra picks that you get for, losing free agents for nothing. They want to kind of boost you up and things like that to make it sort of like almost like a fair trade. So the Patriots are going to get a ton of extra picks, like in the 3rd round, maybe even more in like the 4th and 5th round. And I guarantee you that next year, the team with the most draft capital in the entire NFL will be the New England Patriots. Now, there is a quarterback prospect coming into the draft next year who I think is maybe the greatest quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. And I am extremely high on guys like Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, Daniel Jones. As I'll mention later in my last segment, my top 10 young quarterbacks in the NFL. None of them are Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence of Clemson is something that I don't think we've ever seen before. My only pro comparison I can really give him, that's a really popular thing among NFL draft circles, it's actually John Elway. He has an absolute cannon attached to his right shoulder. He can move, he can run. He has this it factor. He won the national championship as a true freshman. Almost won the national championship last year against the greatest college football team all time, LSU. And he's only going to get better. He's only going to get stronger. He's only going to get more accurate. He's only going to gain more football IQ knowledge. And in my opinion, next year someone will be tanking for Trevor Lawrence. My bet is that it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. I will not be surprised if the Jacksonville Jaguars this year win 0 games in order to secure Trevor Lawrence. He is that special. He can turn a franchise around like that. And it wouldn't surprise me. Actually, I would bet money that a team's going to tank for him this year. Now, is he who the Patriots are after? I think in theory, yes. I don't think the Patriots are going to be bad enough to secure Trevor Lawrence. Like I mentioned before, I really do think it's going to take winning 0 games, to land Trevor Lawrence, to land the number 1 overall pick. And I just don't see that. While the Patriots have everything going for them in that regards, they lost a ton of players, new quarterback starting, hardest schedule in the league. I still think the Patriots are going to beat the Jets once, probably going to beat the Bills once, probably going to beat the Dolphins once, and just out of they still have a top tier defense. They play Jacksonville this year. They're probably going to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. That right there is already 4 wins, and that would take you out of the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. Now, there are other quarterback prospects they could go after. Trey Lance of NDSU is a really interesting prospect that a lot of people are talking about, who's definitely, I can predict and will tell you, will shoot up NFL draft boards when it comes to the draft time. He obviously went to the same college as Carson Wentz. He's big, fast, and strong. He threw 28 touchdowns last year as I think a true sophomore. 28 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, ran for 1,000 yards, and ran for 11 touchdowns. That is unheard of stuff. I don't care that it's Division II. I don't care that he, plays nobody. We see what Carson Wentz does in the NFL. We know that it can translate. Justin Fields is another really interesting quarterback prospect. A lot of people have pegged him as quarterback number 2. However, like I mentioned before, I think it'll be Trey Lance when it's all said and done. Justin Fields is a really great prospect, though, and no way to trash or diminish anything that Justin Fields does for Ohio State. He's incredible. He's big. He's fast. He's strong. He's mobile. And I think he would also be a really interesting option for the Patriots and Bill Belichick. Because Bill Belichick and the Patriots defenses really throughout the years have always struggled with a mobile quarterback, a quarterback that can move, that can extend the pocket, that can extend plays, and really go off script, and that really seems to be giving the Patriots defenses problems. And it wouldn't surprise me that in this new era of Patriot football and Bill Belichick's next chapter of his already historic and great coaching career, that they might want to go the mobile quarterback route, try something new. I mean, maybe it's not new to Bill Belichick, but something that would change it up, that wouldn't seem reminiscent of the past and what it is right now. And I could definitely 100% see them going to Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence if they can get him route. But the main part of this split and settlement, and why I think Tom Brady is going to win early, it's going to appear to win early, and definitely could also maybe win just overall, just in the course of sports history, is this concept of the Patriot way. Bill Belichick has built his coaching career and built really his reputation off this Patriot way, about the team, not about individuals, all about one thing like that. And I think it's starting to wear out with today's generation of NFL players. It worked on Tom early. It seemed that he was getting frustrated with it, losing focus, losing confidence, not losing focus, but more losing confidence in the system, in his teammates, things like that. And obviously, Rob Gronkowski mentioned multiple times how it appeared that he just wasn't having fun playing football anymore. And that's something to keep in mind as well when we talk about how long can this Patriot way continue before it starts to not work on players. Now that Tom Brady's gone, who is, the biggest advocate and the biggest, example of the Patriot way, are people going to buy into the Patriot way? Were people buying into the Patriots because of this Patriot way? Or were people joining the Patriots because of Tom Brady and the opportunity to play for the greatest of all time and the opportunity to win championships? And was the Patriot way just this this extra force or extra phrase that was used around, when in reality, people just wanted to play with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And like I mentioned before, we saw it with Rob Gronkowski, who said he wasn't having fun playing football, how the Patriots were no fun. And we really started to see it with Tom Brady and how he said he was losing the enjoyment of the game and he wanted to keep playing, and he ended up, like I mentioned before, when teams move off of quarterbacks, they go to the complete opposite. It appears that Tom Brady, when he moved off of Bill Belichick, went to the complete opposite, which is a more, fun, like I mentioned before, loose-going Bruce Arians. So, in my opinion, if I had to guess, like I've been guessing really all this show, or giving my opinion, I should say, I think that Tom Brady's going to win this, and he's going to look better out, on the end of this. I don't know if Bill Belichick's going to be able to win another Super Bowl without Tom Brady, but I do think that there's a really good chance that Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl this year, or next year, really. We'll see, or even maybe beyond if he decides to extend that Buccaneers contract. That's going to wrap it up for this segment. Coming up after the commercial break, finally, my top 10 list of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL to close out the show. Don't click away. Make sure to stay and listen for it. It's a really interesting list. I think you guys will really like it. And here's the commercial break. We'll be back right after this with my top 10 list.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
One final segment, what I've been telling you guys all show. We have my top 10 list of the best young NFL quarterbacks in the National Football League today. The future of the NFL right now is so bright. We used to have, I think really starting even in the early 2000s, there was a period where it was just a lot of mediocre quarterback play, but there was Brady and there was Manning and there was even Breeze for a little bit, and obviously Favre and then Rodgers. Right now in the NFL, the level of quarterback play, and specifically quarterback play with these young guys, is absolutely unbelievable. And when you really look down the list, where it seems like this is such a quarterback league, and you look at the teams in the NFL right now who need a quarterback, there really aren't that many teams. It used to be that half the league needed a quarterback, or even like going into this year, like I think, 4 teams drafted a quarterback in the first round, so 4 teams, quote unquote, needed a quarterback. This year, I can only think of a couple teams. The Jaguars need a quarterback going to the draft this year. Like I mentioned before, the Patriots need a quarterback going to the draft. Maybe teams like the Steelers with an aging quarterback, could take a swing on somebody. But we're at an all-time high, I think, right now with the level of quarterback play, and it seems that like 95% of the league has found their guy and they're committed to their guy, and it's really awesome to see. So with that being said, here is my list. We're going to go from bottom to top, 10 to 1, of my top 10 quarterbacks who are considered, young in the NFL. For the criteria of this, they just had to be under 25 years old, 25 or under, I should say, actually. And that makes the list. So guys like Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, even Carson Wentz didn't make it, Dak Prescott. Those guys did not be put on this list because of their age, obviously. Anyway, I want to start off with an honorable mention. So let's just consider this 11. And it's a tie between Justin Herbert and Jordan Love. 2 guys who were just drafted recently. I didn't want to put them on the list, not only because they haven't played an NFL snap yet, but those are the 2 rookie quarterbacks this year that it's really unclear when they're going to play. Jordan Love's kind of an easy, we'll just wait and see, because he's probably not going to play for maybe 2, even maybe 3 seasons. I think he'll get the Jimmy Garoppolo treatment with the Patriots, except I don't think they'll trade him. I think they'll actually give him the reins whenever Aaron Rodgers retires or, they move on from each other. But so I wanted to put him at 11 because I really like Jordan Love as the prospect. Had an outstanding, sophomore season at Utah State. A little bit of a, down, junior season, but was still obviously drafted in the first round by Green Bay. He's got explosive arm talent, great footwork, great speed, can throw on the run, makes these wow plays, but also makes some boneheaded decisions and some mechanical issues that you'd like to see fixed. He's tied with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's a really interesting prospect. Obviously, he was drafted by the Chargers in the first round at pick number 6. It's also unclear when he's going to play. I would like to see Justin Herbert play this year, but it seems that Anthony Lynn and the Chargers coaching staff are really, keen in on Tyrod Taylor. Anthony Lynn obviously has history with Tyrod Taylor in Buffalo. I really do think they're going to ride out Tyrod Taylor and the Chargers defense this year, and they're going to give Justin Herbert that full year to sit. But I would anticipate Justin Herbert starting next year, which is why he's off this list. And, as an honorable mention. All right, so let's start with number 10. And number 10 is also a tie between the other two rookie quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round this year, Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa. Now, the reason why they're not tied at 11th is because I could guarantee you that they're definitely both going to play this year. Joe Burrow is probably going to start week 1 for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think Tua Tagovailoa will start for the Dolphins at some point during the season, not exactly sure when. These guys were clearly 1 and 2 going into the draft this year, Joe Burrow being number 1, Tua being number 2. I do think that if you ask me this list next year, they probably won't be 10th. They'll both probably be a little bit higher. I really like both of these guys. Love Joe Burrow. Love Tua Tagovailoa. But just out of pure, they haven't played a single NFL snap yet, I put them above. However, they were both ahead. I think they will both be better this year than Dwayne Haskins at Washington. Which is why they're ahead of him as you'll see he's one of the quarterbacks who's not on the list who's under 25. All right. Number 9, this might come as a little bit of a surprise. I actually have Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen obviously went 10-6 with the Bills this year. Made the playoffs. Awesome for him. Had a great season. But when you look at Josh Allen, the Bills' success, I don't believe is because of Josh Allen. Josh Allen last year threw for a little over 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, almost 10 interceptions. He had 9 picks. But a completion rate of 58.8, which is in the grand scheme of things, is absolutely horrendous. The NFL today, the NFL really used to be, you need to draft the biggest, the strongest guy you can, the guy who can throw the ball the farthest, and that's not what the league is anymore. The NFL is prided itself. The quarterback play today, it's about accuracy, it's about mobility, and it's about, football IQ, can you read the defense and not throw interceptions? And Josh Allen tends to throw interceptions and is extremely inaccurate. Not that I'm calling his season last year a fluke. He was fine for the Buffalo Bills, but I don't think that, Josh Allen is a Super Bowl caliber winning quarterback just yet. If he could develop with his accuracy and maybe his, mechanics, I could definitely see it. But that's why he is at number 9 on my list. Number 8 is Sam Darnold of the New York Jets. So we're staying in the AFC East with this one. I'm actually higher on Sam Darnold than most. I think he has this ability to just make plays when it's out of nothing, almost like this sloppiness, but it's also good. If that makes any sense, there's some guys that had it, Brett Favre almost had that, this gunslinger mentality of never give up on a play, run around. But obviously Sam Darnold has a major turnover problem, which is something to not be overlooked. Last year Sam Darnold threw 19 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, and also threw for a little over 3,000 yards. But you forget that he missed a couple games with mono earlier in the year, so that has a factor to do with that as well. He had a 62% completion percentage, which is okay, could do better. But the main problem with Sam Darnold is the turnover problems. I think he'll fix it. I don't love his head coach, Adam Gase, but Sam Darnold is only 23 years old. He came into this league so young. He'll develop really well. I'm higher on Sam Darnold than most, and I think this is a good spot for him at number 8. I think he's definitely better than Josh Allen when in regards to AFC East tier quarterbacks, but I wouldn't put him ahead of just yet of some of these other guys I'm going to mention because of these turnover problems that he has and some things he needs to work on. All right, so number 7 on this list is staying in New York is Daniel Jones. I am so high on Daniel Jones. He was absolutely clobbered and slandered when he was drafted so high by the New York Giants, if everybody remembers that correctly. Everybody wanted to take Dwayne Haskins. Last year, Daniel Jones had an absolutely awesome season. He missed the first 2 games, he didn't start, and then he threw 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions with a 62% completion rate and 3,000 yards as a rookie. So he put up better numbers than Sam Darnold and Josh Allen as a rookie when the other 2 guys have had a year in the league. That's absolutely awesome. I also think that he had a worse roster than the Jets and the Bills did last year. I mean, when you really look at the Giants' offense, they have a poor offensive line, poor receiving core, poor defense. Their coach wasn't very good last year. He got fired at the end of the season. The really only thing that Daniel Jones had to do was hand it off to Saquon Barkley, who was battling injuries all year. And the fact that he was still able to throw 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. I think he also ran for 3 or 4 touchdowns as well this year. I'm really high on Daniel Jones, and it wouldn't surprise me when I continue this list that he actually, if you ask me the same question next year, he's a lot higher on the list than he is right now. So Daniel Jones, New York Giants quarterback, at number 7. Now let's get to number 6, and that's Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is one of the most interesting and polarizing players in the NFL. He's awesome. He talks trash. We love him. But let's be real. He has not lived up to what he was supposed to be, especially after that rookie season. He had a worse season this year than he did his rookie season, which is something you never see when it comes to rookie quarterbacks. It's supposed to be that first to second year is supposed to be a jump. Instead, it was a huge regress for Baker Mayfield. So let's talk about Baker Mayfield's rookie season. Baker Mayfield's rookie season, he had a 64% completion percentage, threw for 3,725 yards, 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Absolutely outstanding. Incredible. Was so excited to see him enter his second year this year and take a step, get into that 30 touchdown range, maybe bring down the interceptions to about 12 or even really stay at 14. Instead, Baker Mayfield had a completion percentage of a little under 60, same around 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, and then get this, 21 interceptions. Massive regression for a guy who was actually getting Drew Brees comparisons coming out of college that I never bought, but getting out of college, he was getting those Drew Brees comparisons. Now, Baker Mayfield is 25, so he will not qualify for this list next year, but Baker Mayfield needs to have a big season. He really does. This will be his 3rd head coach in 3 years, so obviously no stability in Cleveland, but when has there ever been? He has the best roster, in my opinion, out of any of these quarterbacks on this list, including the guys you'll see later on when they're my top 4. I think that the Browns roster and the talent, they have 2 good backs. They have Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. They have upgraded the offensive line. Receivers in Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., 2 good tight ends, David Njoku, Austin Hooper, and Baker Mayfield has to have an outstanding season. And I'm not even, if Baker Mayfield had an exact rookie season, that wouldn't be good enough for me. I need to see Baker Mayfield through 35 touchdowns this year. I need Baker Mayfield to get over 4,000 yards this year, and I need Baker Mayfield to have under 15 interceptions to really qualify himself as taking that leap. He needs to take a big, massive step this year. The reason why he's higher on the list than the Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, I'm not ready to give up. I know there's a lot of people who are ready to give up on their Baker Mayfield stop, and I know that I just trashed him for the better part of the last minute or so. But I saw Baker Mayfield's rookie year. He has that it factor. He has that juice. He has that energy. And I really do believe that Kevin Stefanski, the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns, coming from the Minnesota Vikings, he could have an outstanding year in that system, and I'll tell you why. Kevin Stefanski's coming from the Minnesota Vikings. He was the offensive coordinator of the year. I think the Vikings went 13-3 with Case Keenum as their starting quarterback. Baker Mayfield is extremely similar to Case Keenum. Extremely similar arm, extremely similar mechanics, extremely similar play style. Different personalities, I would say. But they play almost the exact same way, except I would say Baker Mayfield's definitely more talented than Case Keenum. Case Keenum's, kind of range is one of the best backups in the NFL and one of the worst starters. I don't think Baker Mayfield's is like that at all, but they do play very similar. The Minnesota Vikings roster is also very similar, or the Minnesota Vikings roster in the Case Keenum years is also very similar to the one that the Browns have right now. Back then, the Vikings had 2 good receivers, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, good tight ends, Dalvin Cook as a running back, good offensive line, great defense. Browns this year, outstanding defensive front, great secondary. Like I mentioned before, 2 backs, 2 receivers, 2 tight ends, upgraded the offensive line in the draft and signing Jack Conklin. The Browns need to not only be really good this year, they need to make the playoffs, and I already told you what I need Baker Mayfield's stats to be. Baker Mayfield, if he doesn't have a big year, you can make the argument this year that he should be moved on from. That the Cleveland Browns should move on from him and look in a different direction because the talent is just too good. But I am holding that little bit of hope, which is why he's higher on this list. That he's number 6 on this list. It was tough to put him this high because of how high I am on like Daniel Jones and even Sam Darnold, but I'm not ready to give up on my Baker Mayfield stock just yet. I think a big year is for him is coming, and he knows it's a prove-it year. All right, now let's get into the top 5 of my young quarterbacks of this top 10 list. And number 5 is Jared Goff. So it's actually really interesting. I didn't actually realize how like old Jared Goff was, and that he actually still fits this list. He's only 24 years old, or I think he actually recently just turned 25. Jared Goff last year had a down year. And after making the Super Bowl, the Rams had a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover. They went 9-7. But actually, like Jared Goff still had a pretty decent season. He had a 63% completion percentage, almost threw for 5,000 yards actually. He's way over 4,000. The problem with him was he went down to 22 touchdowns and 16 interceptions after he came off such an incredible year where he threw 28 touchdowns in 2018. 32 touchdowns and only 12 interceptions. So a big regression year for them, but also overall for the Rams. And I don't want to blame that all on Jared Goff. The offensive line for the Rams was absolutely pitiful this year, and they addressed it. The Rams receiving core has always been good. Todd Gurley, obviously, that whole like dark cloud was just looming over him. And like they didn't know if he was healthy, unhealthy. Was there distrust between the Rams and Gurley, and how was that going on? So like Todd Gurley was really a non-factor for the Rams last year, and the defense got a little older and regressed. They lost Ndamukong Suh. They had a lot of like kind of turnover when it came to the secondary. They traded Marcus Peters, but they also got Jalen Ramsey, a lot of new faces. I think the Rams are going to bounce back next year, but we're also underestimating how hard that division is. Like the Rams went 9-7 in the division with the Seattle Seahawks, who Russell Wilson, in my opinion, is the second best quarterback in the league. And they also had to go against the team that just went to the Super Bowl, the San Francisco 49ers. So I understand why the Rams went 9-7. Obviously, a lot of people expected higher from them, but I think Jared Goff's going to bounce back next year, and he didn't even have that much of a bad year last year. All right, at number 4, this is when we get interesting. I have Kyler Murray, who was a rookie last year, who won Rookie of the Year. Kyler Murray is an absolute outstanding game-changing talent. Kyler Murray is something that I'm not actually sure the NFL has seen before. And I know everyone's like, oh, what do you mean? He's a running quarterback. He doesn't run. He is very similar to Russell Wilson and his inability to get hit. He's obviously smaller, but I don't care about that. The way Kyler Murray throws the football, do yourself a favor and look at highlights of Kyler Murray, but instead of just watching everything, watch the way he throws the football. The way his throwing motion is so quick, and the amount of velocity, like just pure speed that Kyler Murray gets out of when he throws a football is absolutely incredible. The Cardinals obviously upgraded their roster hugely this year. Trading for DeAndre Hopkins, incredible. Drafting Isaiah Simmons on the defensive end, also incredible. Second year of the Cliff Kingsbury system. I'm expecting huge things out of the Cardinals. And if I had to guess somebody like as a dark horse MVP candidate, like Lamar Jackson obviously went from rookie to MVP, and I'll get to Lamar Jackson in a second. I think Kyler Murray could have that same effect. I really do believe that Kyler Murray's jump from his first year to his second year could be one of Lamar Jackson, where you go from rookie to MVP. Kyler Murray is that good, he's that talented, and his roster is also incredible as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see Kyler Murray. He's number 4 on this list. Number 3, I might get some pushback from this. Number 3 is the reigning MVP, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is absolutely incredible. He is amazing. He is electric. He is fun to watch. He is must-see television. I love everything about Lamar Jackson. I don't think he was a one-year wonder. I think this type of production, I think it's not going to be the same exact level, because I think some teams are going to figure out how to, there's no way of stopping Lamar Jackson, but I think limit him. They could definitely limit him, but in my opinion, Lamar Jackson's still going to be incredible, probably rush for over 1,000 yards again next year and have another incredible season. Lamar Jackson last year had a 67% completion percentage, which people don't give him enough credit for, over 3,000 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions while also rushing for 1,000 yards. That is absolutely incredible stuff, absolutely deserved the MVP, and I wouldn't be surprised if the production comes next year. I'll tell you some of my flaws with him when I get into second place, and that belongs to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, in my opinion, is actually going to a certain point of being even like underrated somehow. Deshaun Watson is clutch. He is a playoff performer, and he lays it all on the line. He is a special type of escapability that I keep using the Russell Wilson comparisons because I love Russell Wilson so much. But the way that Deshaun Watson moves around the pocket, keeps plays alive, I think he might be the best in the league at it. And that's something that is absolutely special. Now, it was really hard when making this list when I was trying to decide who I would give second place to, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson. I ended up going with Deshaun Watson just because I think Deshaun Watson's a better thrower of the football. He's not a better runner than Lamar Jackson. And I'm not trying to discredit Lamar Jackson's throwing. I think he's a better thrower than people give him credit for. But what Deshaun Watson can do with his arm late in games, in the playoffs, I think he's also had better playoff performances than Lamar Jackson as well. They're both absolutely incredible quarterbacks, and like I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, the young quarterback talent is incredible, but that's why I'm just going to slightly edge out Deshaun Watson, who threw for 26 touchdowns, 12 picks last year, 68% completion percentage, 4,000 yards. Absolutely incredible. So yeah, just slightly, very slightly Deshaun Watson over Lamar Jackson. And number one, this is obvious, you guys knew this, Patrick Mahomes is not only the best young quarterback in the NFL, he is the best quarterback in the NFL. When I watch him, I see Dan Marino. He's already an MVP, a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl MVP, and I don't even think he's turned 25. Yeah, no, he hasn't even turned 25 yet. He'll turn 25 later this year. That is absolutely unheard of stuff. He's something special. He's something that can't be even quantified. Last year for the Chiefs, he threw that 2018 season, he threw 50 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. That is absolutely ridiculous. Put up similar numbers this year. Patrick Mahomes deserves all the credit, all the recognition. Now, like I mentioned before, not only is he the best young NFL quarterback, he is the best NFL quarterback by far. I actually cannot wait to see his contract. They're negotiating right now, and they don't have to sign it this year, probably next year. It would not surprise me if Patrick Mahomes gets a $200 million contract, and he would deserve it. He is the best quarterback best quarterback in the league, and he's only going to get better. He's only going to get smarter. It's really scary to see what he could do. I talk about these other AFC quarterbacks and how much I love them, how much I love Sam Darnold, how much I love Deshaun Watson, how much I love Lamar Jackson, and how much I love Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa. All those guys might not be able to win anything because of Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes is in this league, because Patrick Mahomes is in the AFC. That's how good Patrick Mahomes is, and it's scary. It's scary for opposing defenses. It's scary for coaches. It's scary for other teams. Just how good he is, because he is literally unstoppable. So yeah, to recap my list, number 10 is a tie between Joe Burrow and Tua, 9 Josh Allen, 8 Sam Darnold, 7 Daniel Jones, 6 Baker Mayfield, 5 Jared Goff, 4 Kyler Murray, 3 Lamar Jackson, 2 Deshaun Watson, and number 1 Patrick Mahomes. That is it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for listening. Sports are coming back. I can't wait to watch and talk about it with you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And this has been the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Make sure to like and leave a great review. It really helps us out. Thank you guys so much again for listening, and I will see you next episode.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.